There are a lot of diehard Vanguard investors out there because Vanguard was the first to offer low-cost index funds. But is Vanguard still king? Are they the best place to invest with? Or has Fidelity taken that spot? What do you think? Is Fidelity best or Vanguard best? Share in the comments and then watch to the end to see if you change your mind. I'm going to compare a couple of different things to see which one is the winner, including costs and fees, such as the account fees, the investment minimums, expense ratio fees, the user friendliness of using the app and the website, the ease of automatic investing, and purchasing fractional shares. Let's start by taking a look at fees. First, we're going to take a look at Fidelity. And the first fee we're thinking about is account fees. How much does it cost just to have an account open with Fidelity or with Vanguard? Fidelity is advertising a big fat zero. Let's scroll down to the full list of their fees. Fidelity has this fee comparison chart, which compares their fees to Schwab and Vanguard. We're not going to pay attention to Schwab today because we're just focused on Fidelity versus Vanguard. So this first one here tells us that account service fee, which is listed at $0. So Fidelity does not charge for you to have an account with them. Compared to Vanguard, this chart here says $20 per year, but if I go to Vanguard's actual site, I know that that is actually $25. So it is $25 for each account, but you are able to waive that fee. If you sign up for e-delivery of statements and other e-delivery, then you're able to waive that $25 fee. So you can still get an account for free via Vanguard, but you do have to jump through a small hoop. So when comparing account fees, apples to apples, I'm going to have to say that Fidelity wins this round because you don't have to jump through any hoops in order to get that free investment account. Compared to Vanguard, you do have to sign up for that e-delivery in order to get the account fully free. Moving on to the fees on index funds. On Fidelity's website, they've got a list comparing their index funds to the equivalent Vanguard index funds. And you can see what the expense ratio is for the Fidelity funds compared to the Vanguard funds. And as you can see, the ones provided via Fidelity are lower than the ones provided via Vanguard. So if you're looking apples to apples at the cost, the expense ratios, then Fidelity is going to win again in this round because their fees are cheaper than the Vanguard ones. One thing to keep in mind is we know that Vanguard was the originators of these low-cost index funds. And the reason why Fidelity even offers these types of index funds at these prices is because of Vanguard's low fees. And then back in 2010, there was a fee war where Fidelity and Schwab tried to compete with Vanguard by reducing their fees down. So the reason why you see these low fees is because of Vanguard. So do you want to go with Fidelity because their fees are lower? Or do you want to support Vanguard because they were originators? I don't know, up to you. But if we're comparing apples to apples, again, Fidelity is going to win this round. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that you can get the Vanguard ETF equivalent of these particular index funds as well. As you can see, I've got the Fidelity fund cost here, the Vanguard fund cost here, the mutual fund, and the Vanguard ETF cost over here. As we go down this list and compare, we can see the ETF costs of those Vanguard ETFs are cheaper compared to their Vanguard mutual fund equivalents for most of them, but they're still a little bit higher than the Fidelity. So even with that, Fidelity is still going to win if we're comparing just cost alone. Now let's take a look at target date retirement funds for Vanguard and Fidelity. Vanguard's is a little simpler, so we're going to start with Vanguard and then we'll come back to Fidelity. So Vanguard offers a number of target date retirement funds. Those target date retirement funds are easy ways to invest because it takes what age do you think you're going to retire, and then you just choose a fund based on that and it rebalances for you over time based on the age that you are. So these are a list of the Vanguard target date retirement funds. All of these funds that you see listed on here have an expense ratio of 0.08%. So a very low fee for these target date funds. One thing of note is this investment minimum is $1,000. So in order to invest in this target date retirement fund, your initial investment has to be at least $1,000. Now, Fidelity's can be a little bit confusing because Fidelity has two different kinds of Fidelity Freedom funds. That's what they call their target date retirement funds. They have the Fidelity Freedom Index funds, and then they just have the Fidelity Freedom funds. Now, don't be like me and make the mistake of getting the Fidelity Freedom fund when you meant to get that Fidelity Freedom Index fund because you're gonna pay more. Let me show you what I mean. So with the Fidelity Freedom Index Fund, I'm going to click on that one right here. The expense ratio for that Fidelity Freedom Index Fund is going to be 0.12%, and that's going to be the expense ratio for many of Fidelity's target date funds that are the index version of the fund. But Fidelity also offers actively managed target date retirement funds. So that one here is this one here. Now I know this is a lot. That's why I'm just taking you straight down to the numbers we need to look at. So for that Fidelity Freedom Fund, the expense ratio is 0.68%. So much higher than that 0.12% of the Fidelity Freedom Index Fund. So if you are using the target date retirement fund inside of Fidelity, just keep in mind that there are two different target date funds that you can choose from. The index one is going to have the lower expense ratio fees, okay? So comparing the fees of the Fidelity ones to the Vanguard, Fidelity's index fees, index fund, one is 0.12% compared to the Vanguard ones are at 0.08%. So comparing directly to the cost, Vanguard is going to win on this because Vanguard is 0.08% for their target date retirement funds compared to Fidelity being at that 0.12% at this current time. Now, moving on to minimums, I did mention this about the Vanguard one earlier. The Vanguard Target Date Retirement Funds, most of them have that investment minimum of $1,000. So in order to start investing in those, you're going to need at least $1,000 to get started, which for the Fidelity ones, you don't need that minimum in order to get started. So Fidelity is going to win on that side when it comes to those target date retirement funds. So the Fidelity is a little bit more expensive, but you don't have to have a minimum of $1,000 to get started investing in it. Okay, continuing on with our fees, there's something that Fidelity offers that none of the other brokerages can compete with, that Vanguard just can't compete with, and that is index funds that don't have a fee at all. You can see this article from 2018 showing that Fidelity one-ups Vanguard, Schwab, and iShares by becoming the first company to offer a no-fee index fund. Yes, Fidelity offers several funds that have a 0% expense ratio. So on here you can see a list of some of those funds that they offer where the expense ratio is absolutely zero, and there are no minimums to invest in these particular zero index funds. This is something that Vanguard just can't compete with. If you are looking for something that is absolutely free to invest in, then you've got this option of the Fidelity Zero Index Funds. So in this category that Fidelity is in all by itself, Fidelity is going to have to be the winner. Okay, so let's go back and talk about those minimums for just a second. I already talked about how Vanguard has that minimum of $1,000 for many of its target date retirement funds. I wanted to talk about the index funds, the minimums on those for Vanguard versus Fidelity. Vanguard's index funds that we saw earlier are referred to as Admiral shares. Vanguard used to have two different sets of shares called Vanguard Admiral shares and Vanguard Investor shares. The Admiral shares had a higher minimum to invest in, but their expense ratio was lower than the Investor shares. Vanguard has now done away with those Investor shares and now just has the Admiral shares, but those Admiral shares still have a minimum to invest. Many of those shares are $3,000 for most of those index funds, meaning you have to start by investing a minimum of $3,000. And if I go back to that very first chart that we looked at earlier, then we'll see that information is shared here in this chart, that the Vanguard has that minimum investment price of at least $1,000 to $3,000 compared to Fidelity where there's not a minimum. So when it comes to minimums to invest, again, Fidelity is going to be the winner here because Fidelity doesn't really have that versus Vanguard having you needing to have at least $1,000 or up to even $3,000 in order to make that first investment. Now, of course, there are other things you can invest in outside of index funds and target date funds inside of Vanguard and Fidelity, but we're keeping our comparison to those index funds because as someone who uses index funds myself, I think that's something that most people who are beginners are going to be looking into. How do you invest in those index funds and what's the comparison between Fidelity versus Vanguard in that regard? All right, let's talk about the user friendliness of the website and the app for Vanguard and for Fidelity. I find both of them pretty easy to navigate now, but I think that has more to do with the fact that I've been in both of the apps and on the website a lot of times at this point, so I'm not overwhelmed by it. I think they can easily be overwhelming to someone who's brand new to it, but I honestly like the way that Vanguard's app is a little bit more simplified than Fidelity's, but Vanguard's app definitely has some drawbacks to it. A couple of things I noticed when I was using the Vanguard app is that you cannot set up automatic investments inside of it. I didn't even see an option to add a new bank account inside of it. So I think the Fidelity app is actually the winner in this case because you can actually do pretty much everything you want to do inside the Fidelity app compared to Vanguard, where I think you're going to have to go to your computer in order to make some of the changes to your accounts, depending on what changes you want to make to your account. So for me, I'm going to have to say that Fidelity wins again in this category when looking at their mobile app compared to Vanguard's mobile app. When I'm thinking about if I'm on the computer using the Vanguard website versus using the Fidelity website, I again find both of them pretty easy to navigate and pretty appealing to the eye. I do think Vanguard has done a lot to revitalize their website and to try to make it a lot more user-friendly. In the past, I would have definitely said Fidelity's was more user-friendly, but honestly, I would say it's really a toss-up between the two. They're both pretty good. They can do everything you need to do when you are on your computer from the app, and again, pretty easy to navigate once you feel a little bit more comfortable being inside of there. And finally, let's take a look at the ease of investing, being able to automate your investments, and being able to purchase partial shares. So when it comes to Fidelity, they make this so easy. Right inside the app, I see multiple different ways that I can set up recurring transfers, set up recurring investments into Fidelity. In Vanguard, I do not see that option at all in the mobile app, although it is possible for me to set up those automatic investments when I go to the website. So Fidelity is definitely going to win when it comes to the ease of being able to set up those automatic investments. Now, when it comes to what can you invest in automatically, again, Fidelity is going to be the winner in this one because Fidelity allows you to invest in a wide variety of things compared to what Vanguard allows you to invest in. There are less things you can automate your investments into when it comes to Vanguard versus what you can automate your investments into when it comes to Fidelity. Same thing when it comes to being able to purchase partial shares. There's a very limited amount of things that you can purchase in partial shares using the Vanguard app compared to Fidelity. Fidelity allows you to purchase a wide variety of ETFs, stocks, and mutual funds in partial shares. So again, Fidelity is the winner. I feel like I've been a broken record as I made this video. Fidelity has come out on top on pretty much everything. Does that mean Fidelity is right for you? Maybe, maybe not. Check out my Fidelity video where I walk through how to open and invest in Fidelity and my Vanguard one to see inside both of those apps. If you're still on the fence about which one is right for you, I would love to know what you think though. Who is the winner in your mind? Is it Fidelity or is it Vanguard? Be sure to share below and I can't wait to see you in the next one.